focus. Ideate, innovate, enable. Lentra and CNBC TV18 Digital Lending Summit, Mumbai, India.
The second edition of Lentra's Digital Lending Summit was fueled with insights from top industry experts about India's digital lending landscape as they analyzed the challenges and opportunities it embodies and further established one vision: economic growth for all. The backbone of the summit, Lentra, a pioneer player for digital lending, has had a legacy of serving over 45 financial institutions with remarkable cutting-edge technologies.
Welcome to Lentra and CNBC TV18 presents Digital Lending Summit, where we are set to explore and discuss the theme Empowering Economic Growth for All, Bridging the Credit Gap. I'm your host for the summit, Mugdha Kalra. Lentra has emerged as a trailblazer in the realm of digital lending. It stands proudly as an end-to-end cloud lending platform democratizing digital lending through its secure and scalable SaaS platform. As of today, Lentra's lending platform proudly serves over 45 financial institutions. Our theme for today's summit, therefore, Empowering Economic Growth for All, Bridging the Credit Gap, resonates with the urgent need to create a financial landscape that leaves no one behind. As we gather here, we recognize that access to credit is not just a financial transaction. It is a gateway to opportunities, a catalyst for growth, and a key driver of economic development. To commence the summit, I would like to invite on stage two integral personalities from Lentra, Sandeep Mathur, Chief Revenue Officer, and Rajesh Kumar, Chief Marketing Officer, who will extend a very warm welcome and set the stage for today's discussion. Gentlemen.
What's at the heart of Lentra? At the heart of Lentra is growth. It's growth for you, our clients. It's growth for your customers. So it's really growth for all. And you will see that come through in many different ways at Lentra. One of the things that we started when we started as a company was that we said we will always be based on transaction-based pricing. So we are directly connected to your success. We do this also by bringing a great deal of product innovation, the speed at which we do product innovation, and a new feature release, which allows you to stay competitive in the marketplace. We also exhibit this behavior of being connected to you, committed to your growth, by doing standard templatized implementations in a very short duration of time. We call that program Super 60. Some of you might have already experienced it. So if you have a standard implementation right out of the box, we can launch a new financial product with you in about 60 days. We work with some of the best and the biggest names across the country. We've helped launch 50 plus products, financial products this year with these clients. It's no mean feat. And most of these products have gone on to win various accolades, various awards.
Let me tell you, show you the real numbers. We got close to 3,000 people. But what is more interesting is they were from 50 cities. So this is not a metro topic, just like loans and lending and credit access is not a metro topic. This isn't a metro topic. And of course, as it's obvious, there are lots of banks, lots of NBFCs, and very good interest at a senior level. Because this is a business topic as much as it is a tech topic. This is an accelerator for business. This is an accelerator for revenues. This is an accelerator for customer experience. With that, thank you very much.
And now, ladies and gentlemen, I am now requesting Shreyasha George, Managing Director and Partner at BCG, to come up on stage and share her insights on the lending space in India.
Change is inevitable. Growth, on the other hand, is optional. There's a lot that has been happening. If you just look at a few simple metrics across the globe, our global risk index is 90% over what it was in 1985. Next year, more than 50% of the world's population will vote. These are big changes that is ahead of us. If you think about 2023 to 2025, we would have consumed 400 zettabytes of data. That is all the data that we've consumed till the 21st century. We in India, I think, have truly and completely taken on growth as the big agenda forward. And I think very appropriately, the conference is called Growth for All. If you look at a simple metric of all the banking across the globe, since financial crisis, global banking has actually lost in terms of performance, whereas India has actually stood out across multiple years now. P by B for banking across the globe have fallen by 66%, where India has continued to shine. I think, no conversation is complete without a Gen AI conversation these days. The reality is, beyond the hype, there are real use cases. An interesting way I've at least heard a few people describe Gen AI versus predictive AI is the left brain versus the right brain. The true power comes in when both comes together. How does the predictive AI start talking with the generative AI? And I think in the banking sector, we are very blessed. We have a lot of technology companies very actively thinking about how tech infrastructure is going to come together. And with that, I think I also have the pleasure of having a conversation with one of the fintechs who is actually supporting the conference as well, DV, who's the CEO of Lentra. Can I invite him on stage, please? Fintechs are playing a big role. We see it from the outside, we see it within the banks. What do you think has changed? How has the fintech and the banking collaborations changed over time?
Banks were wary of fintechs when we started our journey 6-7 years ago. After the initial incubation and the formation of Lentra, we've seen that the banks are very eager to collaborate, experiment, and move ahead with solutions that we have to offer. As with all banks, they're highly risk-averse, and that makes the timeline stretch beyond the initial estimates that most fintechs have in their plans. So the fintechs that can't survive the long term and survive the stretched timelines don't cut it, and the ones that do end up servicing the banks.
So speed has become one of the pivotal changes?
Indirectly, yes.
Got it. I think, DV, maybe a thought, and many of us have been seeing fintechs in the market come about. But what is the innovation? Right? What is different? There's a lot of fintechs in the market. What is different now?
Time to market is the key for most banks. They know what they want to do. Unfortunately, banks are structured in a manner that they can't do it in-house and they can't do it themselves. Given the choice, that would be the best approach for banks. So they rely on fintechs to get it right the first time and enable the bank to go to market with the product innovations that the banks want as fast and as reliably as possible.
How can the lending growth story truly come alive?
I think India is really blessed, and we are the top dog, I think, worldwide with 200 countries. This is the only space where we are number one in the world. We're very lucky that the government put in an infrastructure that's free for our use with UID, UPI, all of the components that build the India stack, Sahmati now, ONDC, OCEN. I mean, the list goes on, and the regulator along with the government are jointly innovating through various mechanisms to open up the market for financial innovation. The market is driving the innovation, and the banks know what they want to do, but the gaps are getting closed much faster with this fairly large infrastructure being open to everyone's use. And And that has really fueled the fintech revolution or the transformation in India. And as time goes along, the regulator is also working on standardizing some of the key aspects.
We are the best when it comes to some of the technology, the infrastructure. What role are you thinking for Lentra? We're quite successful here. What does it mean for supporting the world in terms of digitization of banking?
We'll move with the India government initiative of introducing all the components that the government has built for our use here. And as and when the opportunity opens up, we are testing the waters in those emerging countries.
Got it. Excellent. Thank you so much for taking the time.
All right, following this engaging fireside chat, it's an honor to have with us a very distinguished personality who will present an inaugural address providing an overview of initiatives encouraging credit inclusion and policy interventions for enhancing credit access. Join me in welcoming on stage our distinguished guest, none other than Mr. Jayant Kumar Dash, the Executive Director of RBI.
In this era of multi-inclusivity, the importance of financial inclusion in general and credit inclusion in particular can never be overemphasized. Every country, regardless of the gradient of their economic development, has their own socioeconomic inclusion challenges even this day. In the scheme of Sustainable Development Goals, that is SDGs, of United Nations, financial inclusion occupies a prominent position, featuring as a target in almost 9 out of 17 goals to be achieved by 2030. Given the scale and depth of challenges around credit inclusion and credit access in India, naturally, it had to be addressed by a panoply of initiatives taken in both government and private sector in a synergistic and mutually reinforcing sequences. It is rightly said that future of financial service is collaboration. We have been successful to a respectable degree, and the visibility of future are clearer right now. The financial inclusion journey in India can be broken down into 3 pivotal phases: the planning phase, second is the branding phase, and third is the scaling phase. I think these are the terms which will be very clearly understandable to the industry. The planning phase essentially ran parallel to the various 5-year plans up to 9th plan, that is broadly between 1951 and 2002. The branding phase started in 2003, and this branding phase started with the Office of Governor of Reserve Bank of India being occupied by Dr. Y.B. Reddy. The scaling phase, which essentially represents focus on digital financial inclusion, took off in 2014 in a modest manner, with fast test of digital public infrastructure, and at a great speed after 2016 with mainstreaming of multiple digital enablers. Quintessentially, fintech-led inclusion form the critical mass of this phase. The regulatory policy initiatives on credit inclusion essentially involves moving frontiers of formal finance into informal finance. The challenge for regulators is to balance the obvious benefits that fintech innovators may have for growth and welfare with their potential risks. The frontier of innovation in digital lending falls within the remit of RBI, but the innovators do not fall, strictly speaking. Thank you.
Lentra and CNBC TV18 Digital Lending Summit, Mumbai, India. Lentra and CNBC TV18 Digital Lending Summit, Mumbai, India.
And to discuss the role of innovation and technology in banking, I would like to invite Mr. Dinesh Kara, Chairman SBI, for his special address. Mr. Kara.
The special emphasis which has been given on the financial inclusion by the Government of India, and also the steady rise in the consumption patterns, that has led to the exceptional growth in the India's financial services industries. Particularly, as far as the credit availability is concerned, we observed that despite the continuous growth in demand for credit over all these years, the unmet credit needs, and also more so from in the area, more so the rural areas, where there's a felt need for this credit, there's a huge gap. Through initiatives such as ONDCs and financial service players, very active participation in the network, it will not only help in augmenting the customer base, but also helps in enabling instant e-commerce payments through ONDC platform and will lead to democratization of the e-commerce participation by local and hyper-local merchants. Efficient utilization of artificial intelligence and advanced analytics can redefine and accelerate the success of digital lending. The technology can streamline the lending process, eradicate the inaccuracies, prevent fraud, and ensure that lenders effectively provide successful loan products to eligible borrowers according to their felt need. Further, the push from RBI by creating RBI Innovation Hub is helping the ecosystem in creating a robust lending infrastructure, which is information-based instead of collateral-based. But in the backdrop of all these developments, the very important aspect which cannot be ignored is the data privacy regulation, which is just around the corner, which will certainly lead to enhanced scrutiny from the regulators and will lead strategic calibration by banks and fintech. To my mind, this is going to be a major change in the way all of us consume data, all of us use data for various decision algorithms. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much for that informative talk. But really, I would want you to come back on stage. We have a fireside chat soon, and I would also request CNBC TV18's Lata Venkatesh to join Mr. Karo on stage for a fireside chat.
Let me ask you or request you to put the, the journey of banks and fintechs in perspective. Do you think the relationship between the two has changed in any way? Was it more competitive and combative initially when fintechs appeared? Has it become collaborative or has it not? If you could just explain how you see it.
Banks have got an advantage in terms of network. Banks have got an advantage in terms of the trust which they have built over the years. So naturally, when it comes to India as an economy, it is essentially a bank-led economy. Banking actually is now very, very critical and also is forming part of everybody's life as a person, and also a very critical role it plays for the economy. So in that context, the size of our nation, the complexities which are there, perhaps banks are the one who deal with a huge set of data. The fintech or the technology providers, they have a major contribution to make. We have seen that over the years, there is an increasing adoption of technology in the banking system. And now we have come to a stage where we are observing the technology being adopted practically in areas which are beyond imagination.
Is it a common practice now, both among bankers at State Bank and others, to relook at the co-lending partners? Are their algos good enough, or do you fear that fintech algo-based lending needs to be overseen? Are they too facile or perhaps not very relevant in terms of the parameters they use, considering the threat or the caution raised by the governor?
No, I think when it comes to digital lending, we as the bank also, we have got various algorithm-based lending principles, and we have also created a book. But as a banker, we also keep on revisiting our algos, because unless and until the algos are something which are relevant in the current day context and also meant for the target customer segment, we can have a challenge of the quality of the asset which we have underwritten. So with that in mind, it is, I think, what Honorable Governor has mentioned in terms of validating the algorithms or the models. I think is a very, very right approach. Even as lender, we have observed that over a period of time, we probably cannot afford to have the similar set of principles for lending.
Thank you very much, sir,
Thank
for
you.
spending
Thank
time
you very
with
much.
us.
Thanks a lot.
Emphasizing on the summit's agenda of promoting inclusive economic prosperity, Sumant Rampal, country head, Business Banking Group, Rural Banking Group and Sustainable Livelihood Initiative, HDFC Bank, provided a detailed overview of the scope of MSME and agri-lending in India.
I think fundamentally in the last decade or so, the biggest change which has happened is that whether it's a micro unit or a medium-sized entity or a farmer, there's a lot of data which is flowing into banks. There's a lot of information which is flowing to institutions. And I think that has become the most powerful tool available in making sure that the end consumer gets the benefit of it. And I think thanks to the government, thanks to all the institutions, thanks to technology and the work done by banking industry to kind of reach out to more and more consumers and making sure that cash flows come into an account.
Following this, the summit witnessed an educative conversation about the advent of cloud tech in the lending space.
Both digital and innovation does not have a start line or a finish line, right? It's just that you got to make sure that you're running faster tomorrow than yesterday. If you keep that at the center of it, that's how we look at it, not just in AWS, but even within Amazon. In fact, when we started AWS in 2006, it was pretty much with the hypothesis that something such as basic primitives called compute, storage, networking will help us run faster in our business.
Chitra Bhanu KG from Federal Bank dissected strategies that foster credit growth while focusing on enhancing credit acquisition, conversion, and usage.
Credit card per se is a very interesting product. It's actually a very interesting marriage of a payment product plus a credit product. So we know in the last 8 to 10 years, there has been a lot of changes, a lot of improvements in the payment space per se. You have a lot of fintech companies who have innovated in the space. The UPI as a strategy has been, I don't know, the set of customers who are using UPI on a day-out basis is such a huge number. So with all these things, the capability to build a credit card becomes much more higher.
What followed was an elevating conversation about fostering credit growth by adopting a unified credit decision-making approach.
As a bank, obviously, we do a lot of lending across products. We have a lot of tech partners that we work with. We use Lentra a lot for the kind of, small ticket, large volume, automated lending. We're doing CD and two-wheeler at scale. And in partnership with Lentra, we've managed to scale them up. We've using MLB, for our entire bureau orchestration and models. So that's been there.
Lentra and CNBC TV18 Digital Lending Summit, Mumbai, India. Focus, ideate, innovate, enable.